You are listening to episode number 95 of the Everything Ham Radio podcast. In this episode, we are joined by Ian Kahn as a co-host. We talk about Winter Field Day. We talk a little bit about what's going on at the ARRL and some other stuff. So stick around. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Everything Ham Radio podcast. Today, we actually have a special guest host, which I hope maybe this year that is going to be more of a semi-regular thing. That's, you might remember from previous, 3-4 podcasts now, I think now.
Lost count.
Yeah. So I'm sure that y'all recognize his voice, and let me introduce my guest host again, Ian Kahn.
Good evening, everybody. Curtis, thanks for having me back. It's great to be back on the show.
Yeah, and like I said, hopefully this will be like at least maybe a monthly thing, something like that. I know, Ian's always...
I look forward to it.
Yeah, Ian's always been so great to me. Like I'll call him up on late notice or something. Like, hey, I need something to talk about, or I need somebody to talk to. And he's like, sure, yeah, no problem. And then when I don't call him, like the last episode I did, he's like, hey, why didn't you call me? So, I thought I would just have him on, but anyways, let's get some stuff out of the way here. First off, the show notes you can find at everythinghamradio.com/podcast/95. You can find the podcast on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/everythinghamradio, or the page at facebook.com/everythinghamradio. I'm on YouTube, which has just basically just some plain videos right now. That's one of my goals for this year, is to get more YouTube stuff up. But you can find that at youtube.com/everythinghamradio. Basically, it's just what you're listening to now in video form. But it's just a image of my logo, so it's not really all that exciting other than just the audio. But if you want to listen to it,
I could get my webcam. They could look at me. That would be even worse.
Well, maybe one of these, one of my goals this year, one of my own personal goals this year is to get better internet. And I think we finally have a avenue of getting that. So if I get that, I might start doing video stuff too. So who knows? But anyways, last but not least is on Twitter at K5CLM. Ian, where can everybody find you at?
Email is kilo Mike 4 India Kilo India Alpha November @gmail.com. Facebook is Ian Kahn. I think that works. Twitter is at Ian Kahn 1, and it's IANKAHN, all one word, 1 is Twitter. If you do the LinkedIn thing, I'm on LinkedIn as well as Ian Kahn 1.
Is that thing still alive?
Alive and kicking.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Of course,
that's more for the business. That's more for the business and professional side of things.
Are you saying we're not professional? Is that what you're trying to say?
You can read into that whatever you want, Curtis. So the best ways to reach me: Facebook, Twitter, email. If you want to get in touch with me, and LinkedIn. There are some ARRL groups on LinkedIn. So. And I'm members of a couple of them. So yeah, there is some amateur radio related activity on LinkedIn as well. But most of my activity is on Facebook and email.
Yeah, pretty much we do. Except for, I guess I'm probably mostly active on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. But it's more of a okay. I got 9 notifications. What are they? Yep. Okay. Most of those are, you got birthdays. This is what happened last year. That such and such a friend liked your picture, and such and such person posted on this group, and
yeah.
Okay. And I clear it off and I close out the app. That's pretty much all I do. Now when I take a picture and post of my kids or something like that, then it like really blows up because like everybody likes it, and you're like, 15 people liked your picture. So
right. My club here in Metro Atlanta, the North Fulton Amateur Radio League, actually has a pretty active Facebook presence. I follow my own club. And there's this podcast that I follow periodically has a pretty active group too. I think it's called something like Everything Ham Radio. You might check that out.
Oh, okay.
But, there are a few other podcasts that I follow that have, excuse me, Linux and the Ham Shack. They were on hiatus for a while, so they're just now getting ramped back up. And 100 Watts in a Wire is Christian Kutnick. That's a pretty good podcast, and I follow that one as well on Facebook. So there's some good amateur radio activity out there.
Well, I seem to have read now. If I'm thinking this right, if it's the same person I'm thinking, I think Christian is leaving 100 Watts in the Wire.
Yeah. Well, he didn't say anything in the podcast that dropped today about leaving it.
I could have swore that I read something like that. I'll have to look it up. But anyways, so, today we've got, let's go ahead and get to the topic because we've got a rather lengthy thing. First off, we're going to talk about Winter Field Day because it's coming up really soon. Now, I know I've done stuff in the past on Winter Field Day, and I did a whole episode on it. And I'll have a link in the show notes of where you can find that episode. But basically, we're just going to kind of cover about, what it is, when it is, what you can do. It's kind of just a short segment because it's coming up really close. It's actually like 2 weeks after this episode airs. This year, it's always the fourth full weekend of January. So this year, it is.
Now that sounds really familiar.
Yeah, it's the opposite of the ARRL Field Day in June.
Right.
So, January, June, both J names, both fourth weekend. Yeah.
There you go.
So anyways.
Both called Field Day. How about that?
Wow. The difference is, though, it's normally really hot in June, and it's really cold in January. So that's the main difference. But anyways, this year it starts January the 27th at 1900 UTC time, which is 2 p.m. Eastern time for those that don't want to do the math. And it runs through the 28th again at 1900 UTC. So 2 p.m. Eastern to 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, last full week of the month. You can, just like regular field day, you can start setting up on Friday, but no earlier than 2 p.m. Eastern on Friday. And you can see stations setup may consume no more than 12 hours total. So if you have a really big station, you better hurry and have a lot of people.
Or have it very modular.
Right.
Very, very lock and load and snap and click.
Exactly. It's basically the same thing as, as what field day is. It has basically the same rules. You can only have, so many. You can have to have your station within 100 meters, or 300 yards, I think is what it is. I have it in my notes here somewhere.
So we were talking at the before we started the show. We were at the kind of the pre-conversation, and I actually just got done listening to another podcast that I listened to, the Ham Radio 360 Field Radio Show, and in last week's episode, they were talking to one of the founders of Winter Field Day, and he makes a very valid point. The ARRL does Field Day every year in June. And that's all well and good. But, we as hams are called upon to assist in disasters and to assist in emergency communication situations all year long.
Yeah, it's not always going to be cold, or it's not always going to be hot.
Be hot. Yeah, it's not always going to be hot and humid and mosquitoes buzzing around. And easy to get your ground rods driven or your guys for your antennas driven because the ground's real soft. Sometimes it's going to be 12 below zero and the ground's going to be frozen, and you've got to figure out how to work in those kinds of situations. And, so Winter Field Day, sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds like it's a great activity, like the league's Field Day. But it serves a vital purpose in making sure that if you're going to set up an outdoor station, that you are prepared to handle harsh, cold, adverse weather conditions. Not just hot, humid adverse weather conditions.
Yeah, I mean, you got to know how to how to bundle up, how to get someplace that's going to be warm so your fingers aren't frozen, and working when your fingers are, somewhat frozen. Those are all things that you have to consider when you're operating, because it could be, like it's going to be tonight. I just watched the Weather Channel. I was watching a tornado program or so before we started recording or watching this or doing this, and it said tonight it's supposed to be like a wind chill of like negative 22 in Omaha, Nebraska. So it's not always going to be the hot or muggy or decent weather depending on where you are in the U.S. It's going to be cold and it's going to be rainy.
Exactly.
And it's going to have snow and stuff like that. So I commend all the founders of Winter Field Day and those that are keeping it going, because it's a really very good training exercise.
It is. Excuse me. It is. I'm going to apologize to everybody. I'll go ahead and throw this out there. I'm just getting over some sinus issues, so if I'm a little coffee and a little hacky and clearing my throat, I apologize to everybody now while we're early in the show for that. But Winter Field Day is a training exercise, as a COMEX, a communications exercise for those of you out there, for those out there that aren't familiar with the military and first responder and public service term for communications exercise. As a COMEX, it's very important because we do need to recognize that we may be called on to go help out when the ground is frozen. And, the dangers are very different from the dangers that we face summer field day, or ARRL field day, which, heat exhaustion, dehydration, things like that. You can still get dehydrated in the middle of January if you're not drinking enough water and you're exerting yourself. But depending on where you are in the country, and where you set up, where you set up your exercise, hypothermia and frostbite and cold exposure, and knowing when, maybe we as hams need to back off, as opposed to move forward.
Right.
And I actually, while we're talking about field day in different times of year, a friend of mine here in the Atlanta area thinks that field day should rotate 1 month each year, the ARRL field day. For just that reason, because we're not always called on in June. Things happen in May, and things happen in November, and things happen in August. And, we should be training and doing a setup to prepare ourselves, for every eventuality, not just the warm weather.
Right.
So Winter Field Day, very important as a training endeavor. But hey, it also sounds like it's going to be an awful lot of fun. So
yeah, absolutely. Just like all the different categories and stuff that the ARRL Field Day has, Winter Field Day has the same, but it's just not as many. They basically have three of them. They have indoor, outdoor, and home. The indoor is basically if you are out and about and you are in a weather protected structure that an amateur station is normally not available. Kind of like like a park that has a cabin or something like that, a community center, maybe your EOC if it doesn't have amateur radio in it, which is,
an ice fishing shack.
Sure. I honestly, I think that would be more along the lines of an outdoor. If you think of an ice fishing shack, you're not going to have very good insulation. You're probably not going to have heat because then, you'll heat up the ice below you and fall down. So I would actually say that would probably be an outdoor.
Well, but it's a solid structure that's protected from most of the elements.
Yeah, but actually a fishing cabin like that would be a outdoor structure.
I'll take your word. I've never been ice fishing. I'll defer to you on that.
Well, it says in the description of outdoor, it says operate from a location partly or fully exposed to the elements, and at least 30 feet away from your normal station location, and not using any part of previously erected antenna system or ham station. A campground, park pavilion, canopy, picnic table, tent, pop-up camper, backyard shed, tent, deck, etc. may be used. Operation from a non-insulated car, truck, van, boat is considered outdoors.
I guess Ice Fishing Shack would fall under that.
Yeah.
By the way, interesting note from the other podcast. I'm going to steal material from somebody else. I hope we don't get in trouble for that. They were talking about how the pop-up camper is considered outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're activating from a mobile home or RV, because those have heating systems in them, those are considered indoors.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, a pop-up tent would basically have a heater, but I guess why they consider it an outdoor is because it has the vinyl walls. It doesn't have the solid insulated walls.
Yeah, it's a temporary structure.
Yeah, so I guess that would be why it is. But
I can go with that.
Yeah, so and then the last category is a home station, and basically that's just your regular ham shack where it's already set up, in your garage or your sunroom or your bedroom or wherever it is that you already have your ham station set up and permanently fixed is considered a home station. Now you can do extra things like the alternative power if you don't use commercial power, running a generator or something like that. You can do that. You can get the bonuses for that for each of these things. But anyways, those are the things. And the classes are just like it is with the ARRL field day, just the number of radios that you have operating at one time or capable of simultaneous transmission. So if you have one station, you're going to be one. And instead of one alpha like you would in the ARRL field day, you'll be one India or one Oscar or one hotel, depending on which category you are in. So,
yep, hotel being the equivalent, I guess, of Delta during ARRL field day is the home station.
Right, yeah. So if
I'm able to get on the air, that's what I'll be, is probably a one hotel station.
Right. So there is some bonuses that you can get. But before we get to that, let's talk about the actual points. You get 1 point for phone QSOs, just like with regular field day, and you get 2 for digital or CW. The interesting thing I read about in these rules, in the QSO points, it says busted exchanges will be penalized by 1 additional point for each missed exchange or call sign. So if I'm reading this right, and I have somebody on my log that doesn't have me on their log, I get penalized a point. Is that the way you understand it?
Well, the way I understand it is if the QSO gets busted, you would lose, if it's a sideband as an example, you'd lose 2 points, is how I understand that. You lose the point for the QSO plus the additional point for the busted contact. Mm-hmm. But I would hazard that a busted my understanding of a busted QSO would be, there's a mistake in the log entry. So maybe it is if somebody's, maybe it is if I have you but you don't have me. Maybe that's a bust too. But I think of it as I have you, you have me, but I've got your call sign incorrect. Yeah. Kind of thing. Yeah. That's a busted queue. Or I've got your exchange, something in the exchange is incorrect. Mm-hmm. I guess if I've got you but you don't have me, I guess that's incorrect exchange information, isn't it?
So if any of y'all that are listening to this know the answer to what they classify a busted exchange, leave a comment in the show notes so that we can all know.
Because knowledge is power.
Exactly. I would hate to put you on my list just to, say that I worked you for that extra point to get me over 1,000 points or something and then get busted and only get 998. That would just not be right.
Right. Right.
So, the other thing that I don't think the regular, or the ARRL field day has is mode and band multipliers. If I might be mistaken, but I don't remember seeing.
League doesn't have any multipliers. A contact is a contact. Yeah. There are no. There are no mults for anything in the regular in the ARRL. I don't want to call it the regular in ARRL's field day.
Yeah. So basically what this is you get one multiplier for each mode operated per band. So if you have one contact on, say, 40 meters and one contact on 20 meters, you actually get a 2x multiplier.
2 multipliers.
Yeah. And the example that they give is it says operating CW and phone on 80, 40, 15, and 10, CW and PSK on 20, FM on 2 meters and 440, your total multiplier would be 12 times. So you basically get two.
It's very complicated.
Yeah.
Example.
You know,
They could have just stuck with the phone and CW on 80, 40, 20, and 10, and that's 8 multipliers.
Yeah, I guess the CW and phone for 4 bands, that's 8. CW and PSK on 2 of them, that's 10. FM on 2 meters and 440 is 2, so that's 12. So, so interesting. Then you also get multipliers for your power. If you are greater than 100 watts, it's just 1x. If it's 100 watts or less, it's 2x. And if it's QRP, it's 4x.
So that's very similar to what the league does. It's 1x, 2x, and 5x, I think, for QRP. But very similar conceptually.
Right. But the difference is, and I think I might be wrong again, I haven't looked at the ARRL, the field day rules since last field day, but their definition of QRP is on CW is a 5 watts maximum carrier, but on phone and digital it's 10 watts maximum peak power is what they consider QRP. So if you're running a an Elecraft, what is that, KX2, I think, that has 10 watts on single sideband?
Yeah, well, the KX2 and the KX3 are both, I think, 10-watt radios.
Yeah, so, if you're doing single sideband on those radios, you can do the full 10 watts peak power and still classify yourself as QRP. Right.
Absolutely.
Which I totally agree with. A lot of times I hear, QRP is 5 watts or less, no matter what. But, it's honestly, I don't.
It depends on what mode you're operating.
Yeah.
Because, a little technical differentiator, remember, CW is just the carrier, and the dits and dahs are the brakes in the carrier, and sideband and digital, if we're running back the old traditional when digital first started and it ran on sideband, the carrier is suppressed on sideband. You're only getting the upper or lower sideband depending on which band you're on. So there is no carrier, technically. So, somebody's probably going to come back and yell at me that I got something technically incorrect on the CW conversation. But as I understand it, CW it's just the carrier, and the dits and dahs are the brakes.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there is the the modulated CW that you get where it's not a full brake, like an auto keyer, I guess is what it would be, that has the dits and dahs. I guess originally it was just the brakes that did it, but it still is a tone.
Right.
It's a single tone that is transmitted. So that is, there's no real modulation in it. It's just a single tone. Where with your voice, you have, everything from, 200 hertz up to 20,000 hertz that your ear can hear.
Exactly.
So your voice just goes it, and then when you get louder and you get closer to the mic, then you get, more
power.
More power. You get more modulation. So
that's it.
I totally get that. So
makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, exactly. Now the bonus points there's not as many as what the ARRL has. There's no a elected official bonus. There's no public information desk bonus. There's no news media outlet bonus. There's none of those bonuses that the ARRL field day has that are 100 bonus points. But there's 4 of them that are 1,500 bonus points. If you do non-commercial power for your station, it's 1,500 points. And that's for your entire station with the exception of your logging-only computer you can use on commercial power. So if you have a computer that you're just doing logging on, you can hook that into a wall outlet or extension cord or something like that. But if it's running FLDigi, it's got to be on emergency power. Now, the other thing with this is also batteries. When you're doing this alternative power, you can run on batteries, but you can't, if you charge the batteries with, say, solar or wind power or something like that, if you charge those, you can have those connected. But if you don't, if you charge your batteries through commercial power, they can't be hooked to your radio. But you can charge them off commercial power
while they're charging, or period.
Well, while they can't be charging from commercial power while they're in use. So I can have two.
Okay.
I can have two batteries, be using one and charging one off a commercial power.
Okay, you just rotate them in
and then rotate them in and out, right? But if I have a solar panel, I can have the solar panel connected to the battery while it's in use.
Because that's still an alternate power source.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah. And that's 1,500 bonus points. So super easy. And that includes...
That's a nice bonus.
Yeah, and that includes a generator. So, I mean, that's what we run off of anyway, off of field day.
That's we use field. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing is if you are operating outdoors, if you're an outdoor station, you get a 1,500 bonus points. This would be a really easy bonus to get if you live in the South. Typically, maybe, possibly. Right now it's like 26 degrees outside, and with a wind chill of 9.
It's really cold in the South right now, even. So.
Yeah, and we're expecting an inch and a half of snow over the next 24 hours. So, I guess anywhere it could be cold, but typically in the South it's going to be a little bit warmer. If you're the guys down in Florida, they're probably in shorts and stuff like that, operating field day. But for those of you up north, that 1,500 bonus points, you're going to have to work for it. Putting up a shelter or putting a plastic around a pavilion or something like that, and putting a heater up there or a tent or something. That they're going to make you work for that 1,500 bonus points for up there in the north.
I couldn't imagine being in the backwoods of someplace like Minnesota at the end of January, sitting outside in a tent.
Oh yeah, well even like I was saying earlier, the Nebraska minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. That 30 minutes of exposure at that temperature at the -2 that Nebraska is going to be, the actual temperature. 30 minutes of exposure, you get frostbite in your fingers, in your toes.
Right.
So yeah. Let's see. You can also claim 1,500 bonus points if your operation is not a home station. So if you're operating somewhere else, whether it's indoors or outdoors, you get 1,500 bonus points.
Well, I could go sit out in my car and turn on my HF in the car and just go park at the top of the cul-de-sac. That meets the 30-foot category from my shack, and then I could get those 1,500 points.
Well, not only do you get the 1,500 points, but you also get the 1,500 points for being outdoors.
For outdoors.
So you get 3,000 points.
Right off the bat.
Yeah.
And I haven't even made a QSO yet.
Exactly. Well, and then would you be classified as alternative power since you're running off your car?
Well, here's the thing. And this would be, I think, a decision for their rules committee. Because the ARRL, if you read the ARRL's field day rules, a car does not get the alternate power source bonus points because your car battery is charged by mechanical means. It's charged by your alternator, which is essentially a generator. So that doesn't get that. So that would be a question for the Winter Field Day rules people to maybe mull over.
But a generator is considered alternative power.
Oh. Well, the league says you are. Oh, because it's an engine.
Maybe
that charges the battery. Because you're using your engine to charge the battery, although a generator's got an engine on it too. I don't know. There's something about the ARRL rules. There's something about the ARRL rules that because of the way a car recharges its battery, that is not considered an alternate power source.
Maybe because it's...
because the battery for ARRL Field Day has to be charged by a non-generated power, a non-electrical, non-commercial, non-generator-based power source. It has to be solar, wind, water, human power, something like that. That's the distinguishing feature.
Right.
If Winter Field Day allows a generator, then maybe they consider your car an alternate.
But then again,
fuel source.
But then with the ARRL Field Day, you have your Alpha station that's running off of generators, and then you have your Bravo station, which is working off of batteries. Mm-hmm. So I guess you wouldn't get the Bravo station. You would have the Alpha station equivalent in your car. Maybe that's what it is.
Maybe. I'd have to go back and look at the ARRL's rules again. It's been a year. The new rules, the 2018 rules packet should be coming out in a couple weeks. It's been a year since I've looked at the ARRL Field Day rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the last thing, is, the last bonus is a QSO via satellite. You get 1,500 points for making one contact via satellite. That's all you got to have. And that's all you're allowed. Yeah, that's all you're allowed. You're only allowed one contact. And and the other thing is that your exchange on the satellite has to be the regular exchange, not your Winter Field Day exchange. You're going to do your grid square and your signal report, I think is what it is. It's not your
call sign
3 hotel North Texas or whatever. It's not going to be that.
It's whatever exchange you would make on satellite. So as not to confuse the other satellite operators that maybe aren't participating in Winter Field Day or don't even know what's going on.
Right. So, but anyways, that's kind of Winter Field Day in a nutshell. I don't know if I'm going to participate in it. I still haven't really got my ham radio set up yet, so probably not. I might do maybe some Echo Link, because you can do like Echo Link, not Echo Link, but you can do D-Star or System Fusion or something like that if you don't go through a repeater. If you go on Simplex, you can do it.
Do it Simplex, yeah.
So, I might do maybe some 2-meter ones, maybe. I don't know. Probably not. Maybe I'll get with my club. I think we might be doing Winter Field Day. Do you think you're going to try and do it this year?
I don't know. I honestly will have to see. It sounds like a lot of fun. I've just got to see what else is going on in 2 weeks. In terms of other activities and other scheduled events, I'll be rolling off of being on call. I go on call next week for work. Friday next week for work. No, Friday this week for work. Maybe they count. So I'll be rolling off of on call. Depending on how busy my on call week is, I may just sleep all weekend.
I hear that,
but we'll see.
Yeah. All right. I'll
certainly try if I have the availability. I'll try to at least get in for a couple of hours and play.
There you go. All right. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear from West Mountain Radio. We have a new toy that we're featuring this quarter. So stick around and we'll be right back.
Oh boy.
West Mountain Radio has recently released their 3rd generation power gate, the Epic Power Gate. It uses advanced technology to achieve a very low, 0.05 volts to be exact, power loss, and has a maximum flexibility to charge modern batteries. It features a solid and durable construction in an aluminum case, and includes mounting holes for convenient and secure use in mobile units. It uses Anderson power pole connectors that are standard on all West Mountain Radio products. The Epic Power Gate is a 12-volt backup power system rated at 40 amps continuous from either a power supply or a battery. Any equipment that is connected through it will instantly switch to battery during a loss of power. Not only does the Epic Power Gate act as a backup power switch, it also has a battery charge controller, so your batteries will remain charged when hooked up to a power source. The Epic Power Gate can charge all chemistries of batteries and supports a smart charging program for lead acid and lithium-ion batteries charging up to 10 amps. As an added bonus to this iteration of the Power Gate line, the Epic Power Gate also has a solar charge controller. If you would like to know more about the Epic Power Gate or any other item that West Mountain Radio has, go to everythinghamradio.com/WMR and make sure you get your free USB port monitor with your purchase. All right, y'all, we are back, and again, we have Ian Kahn as a special guest host, and what y'all don't know is we actually spent like the last 20 minutes or so, well, I spent the last 20 minutes putting up groceries. He spent the last 20 minutes listening to my wife and I talk about putting up groceries and other things when I thought my microphone was muted, and it wasn't, so... So that's what we did. Didn't you just love those breaks, and you never know what goes on behind the scenes. Well, now you do.
So you need a bloopers reel.
Yeah, exactly.
Like on some movies, they produce a bloopers during the credits. You stay for the credits because there's bloopers or special content or something like that.
Right.
We need at the end of the podcast, you need like an outtakes reel or a bloopers reel.
Yeah, something like that.
So they can listen to the 10 minutes of what should have been dead air, but was you and your wife talking about putting the groceries away.
Yeah, we'll go with that. So anyways, what we're going to talk about this segment, I'm sure that there has been a bunch of you that have read about or heard about or seen some kind of news or something, and maybe you didn't. Maybe you don't know what's going on. And if you're not an ARRL member, you might not know what's going on. Well, there is a major uproar with I don't know if it's such a small group, but a good portion from what I've been reading about some changes that the current board members of the ARRL are trying to do, and it's just crazy. They're trying to change a bunch of wordings, I guess you could say, in different parts of the what is it? The
bylaw.
Yeah,
is there bylaw and the official documentation that governs the ARRL and how it operates.
Yeah, and one of the things I think that everybody's in such an uproar about is they were trying to put it where the president and 3 vice presidents were voting members of the board. To me, that was just crazy, and I guess to a lot of other people that was just crazy. And I guess there was enough people that said something about it that they actually removed it. Now, let me back up here just a little bit. The board meets tonight, the night that this goes live. This coming Thursday,
the 19th.
Yeah, Thursday the 19th is when they actually meet, and they're doing all the votes and stuff like that. So, probably not going to have any way of saying your piece if you haven't already. If you don't already, you know what's going on. But there's a bunch of people that have, and some of them are just plain crazy. I wanted to talk about one over here in just a minute, but there's things like, there's 3 of them that have been removed from the initial thing because of the uproar that's called. First one, the director and the vice directors. Another one was that...
Why don't you elaborate on that one? Because I'm sure... I can tell you for a fact I'm not as well read on this, and I'm an ARRL member, and I am not as well read on this as I should be. So why don't you just kind of explain a little bit what these 3 big ones that were pulled out already are?
Well, the first one is the board of directors for the ARRL. They're made up of elected officials from each division in the U.S., and those board of directors are the ones that vote on the things. They meet twice a year, I believe. Once in January and once in July, if I'm not mistaken. And that's when they do all their voting and stuff. Well, they were wanting to make it, or somebody on the board proposed to make it where the president of the ARRL and 3 vice directors,
3 vice presidents.
Yeah, I guess it was 3 vice presidents that were. Oh no, this one has not been removed. This one's actually still in here. Granting director-like voting powers for president and 3 vice presidents. That one's actually still in there. But, I misread it. The 3 that have been removed, well, no. Let's talk about this for now. This one topic. I know I'm going all over the place here, y'all. I apologize. But since I already started...
That's okay. This is a very complex issue.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of very complicated changes that are proposed that the board is voting on Thursday. I guess it's Thursday night, the 19th. And that will make very significant changes that affect all of us. So it's complex, and you're going to put the ARRLvoice.org website in the show notes, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So anyway, what this is, you have your, I believe it's 12. There's 12 board members, if I'm not mistaken. And each of them are elected officials by each of the divisions. Well, if this motion passes, there'll be 4 people on the board of directors for the ARRL that are employees of the ARRL and not elected officials. They answer. They don't answer to anybody. They don't answer to the common ham. They answer to the ARRL itself.
And I can tell you from having served on the board of a nonprofit organization in the past, and I can talk to my experiences around practices on some of these others. As far as the board of directors, in the case of the organization I belong to, I sat on the board of my synagogue for 4 years before my son was born. So we're going back 14, 15 years. My son's 12, so we're going back 8 to 12 years ago. Or 12 to 16 years ago, I'm sorry. But the employees of the synagogue that attended our meetings, and that would have been like the executive director and our clergy and 1 or 2 other people, were not allowed to vote on any board decisions because they were employees and their vested interest was not necessarily in line with what the vested interest of the board should be. Consequently, they were seen as having conflict of interest. So they attended the meetings. They helped explain what was going on to those of us that were voting members. They did not have a vote on board of directors matters, and I think that's pretty common practice in nonprofit organizations. That the employees of the organization, they report to the board of directors, but they don't vote on matters that come before the board. So this would be a huge irregularity. In terms of the way nonprofits operate.
Well, the way anybody really operates,
Yeah.
Any kind of board of directors typically doesn't have a paid employee representing the company. Now, there is an exception to this as it stands right now, and it is typical with a lot of places. Because the board of directors is an even number, the president has the ability to vote in the case of a tie. But that's the only time that the president themselves can vote. But this will allow...
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but this will allow 4 people that have a vested interest in just the ARRL to have a voting presence. So if you get something that, say, they have 4 votes right there. And if you get 2 more votes from 2 board members, you pretty much have a unbeatable vote. So it really sways the voting power of the board of directors in the ARRL's favor. So, but this one is still in there. If it's going to pass, I don't know. There is a bunch of letters that are on the My ARRL Voice website, which is myarrlvoice.org. That's myarrl voice.org.
All one word.
Yeah, all one word, except for the .org.
Right.
But if you go in there and you click on the button that says Learn from Others, there's letters from all kinds of people, including 5 division directors that are on the board that have responded to what people have said. And I've read every one of those responses, and every one of them said that they're not in favor of the president and the vice presidents being able to vote. So that's a good thing. So that's 5 out of the 12 that are definitely voting no. So I don't see this actually passing.
Right. It's just a bad idea. It's bad governance all around. It really is.
So on to what the three that had been removed. One of the motions was that a board of director, officer, director, or vice director could be removed from office for cause, is what it says. It says removal by board of director vote of an officer, director, or vice director for cause. It doesn't explain what the cause is, or what an example of the cause is, or the justifications of the cause, or parameters of the cause, or whatever. It just says for cause. So
it puts that decision in the hands of the Committee on Ethics, which is 3 people that don't answer to anybody else.
Right.
As I understand it, I'm going to preface all of this and say, as anything that you hear come out of me on this one, because again, I am not as well read as I should be on this, is as I understand it, and from the little bit of reading I have done.
Yeah, and definitely that what we say on everything in this podcast is our opinion alone, unless we quote something that somebody else has said. But anyways, it's what we understand. We're not experts. We don't know everything. I haven't gone through and read the entire documentation and stuff like that of the the articles and the bylaws and stuff like that. I haven't done that. I did read about 4 or 5 hours or so of stuff last night in preparation for this, but nowhere near making a dent in all the stuff that is in the ARRL. Yep. The other thing, which is basically somewhat similar, there was actually a motion to make it where the board of directors could vote to revoke a individual's ARRL membership, again, for cause.
For cause. And it's the same vague for cause.
Right. So, if you say something against the ARRL and they don't like it, they can say, this person's voted out and there's nothing you can do about it. Whether you're, you pay by the year or whether you're a lifetime member, they can vote you out and there's nothing you can do about it if that was passed. And like I said, this was removed in the final proposals or whatever, motions. Yeah. The other one that was removed is the incorporation of board policy on governance, the code of conduct, into the bylaws by reference. Not exactly sure what that means, but I know there was some changes going on to the code of conduct. Again, it was very, I venture to say, confusing as to what they were saying.
I think that all has to do with what directors are allowed to tell their constituents around ARRL board decisions and how those decisions are reached. One of the big things, one of the big points that I did read about was that board members were not allowed to criticize board decisions or come out as against board decisions once those votes had been taken and board decisions had been made. I'm kind of on the fence about that one. Again, from my own personal experience, it was fully expected that once the board voted on a matter or on an issue, whether you were for or against, no matter which side you voted on, it was expected that publicly you would support the decision of the board. Mm-hmm. And that I actually believe to be common practice, that once a vote is taken, it's expected that everybody is going to come out on a unified front or present as a unified front supporting the decision, whether the decision was voted in favor of an issue, voted down an issue, decided to table it for further discussion, whatever the decision was. I will say that is from my limited experience, and if there are other people that know differently or have different experiences, that's probably something that we'd like to hear about, just to see how other organizations handle that. But once a vote is taken, I think I agree that that all of the members of the board should present a unified front. Now, leading up to that, a board member during the discussion and before an item comes up for a vote should be able to tell their constituents how they feel about the issue or about the matter, and should be able to do so without threat of censure or without threat of any kind of disciplinary action. And I thought there was something in some of these changes of the Code of Conduct that basically said, you couldn't come out at all opposing board actions, whether before or after a vote was taken. And if that is the case, I am definitely not in favor of that. Our directors need to be able to feel that they can vote their conscience and that they are allowed to talk openly and freely with the members of their division, which, we're the ones that elect our directors.
Right.
I'm in the Southeastern Division. I should be able to go to my director and say, look, how do you feel about this issue? And I should get an honest answer. Because that's going to affect how I, as a member of the ARRL in the Southeastern Division, that might affect how I choose to vote when the next election comes up for the director and vice
exactly. And the way that I understand with that, whether they could say something about it or not, was that their vote, their individual vote, had to be recorded in the official release of the minutes of the meeting. So if they didn't specifically tell the secretary, record my vote as yay or record my vote as nay, they give just a general overview, 6 yays, 6 nays, or something like that. So unless they specifically told them record my vote or called for a what was the word?
Like a roll call vote?
Like a roll call vote, which will have each individual's ones done. It wouldn't be a per name basis, so they couldn't say what their vote was, which to me is kind of crazy. I mean, it should be in the minutes anyways on who voted for what. I don't think that you should have to say or ask somebody to record your vote.
I don't know. I don't remember when we voted on items. Let's say just to make the numbers even, there were 15 of us on the board. I don't seem to recall the secretary recording how each member voted. They just recorded, the measure passes or the motion passes 9-6 or 10-5 or whatever. On the other hand, that didn't stop us from discussing how we voted and why we voted the way we did. So I don't know. I think there's more to this one than I understand.
Right. And I think what this all brought up, or what brought all this up, was there was actually a director, and I don't remember his name or call sign off the top of my head. I remember reading about it. It's like K2JJ or something like that. Not too long ago, they basically made it where he was. They couldn't remove him from office because he was a elected official, but they basically censored him. And from what I'm understanding,
I thought it was a K6.
Something like that. I'm not sure.
I thought it was somebody in Six Land, but yeah, no, there was a director that was censured.
Yeah,
for speaking out.
Well, I thought I had it.
There was also a case, and I can speak a little to this one personally, where without explanation, without reason, without cause, I can't say without cause, without explaining the cause. In the Southeastern Division last year, was it just last year? Our old director was up for re-election, and a week before the election is supposed to happen, he was running opposed. The week before the election, we in the Southeastern Division get a note that says, this candidate has been declared ineligible to run, he's been disqualified, here's your new director.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that happened again recently in another division. I can't tell you which one because I don't know off the top of my head. But I can tell you that raised a lot of stink
Mm-hmm.
in the Southeastern Division, rightly so. We were given no warning that there was an issue. We were just told this candidate is disqualified because now there is only one candidate in the field. He is automatically elected, and this is your new director. And we were told when we pressed the league for why, we were told that it can't be discussed because it's a personnel matter and it's governed by HR confidentiality policies. The challenge with that is directors, they're not employees. They are volunteer elected officials on the board of directors. So, there is question whether that answer, whether the old HR answer that we can't discuss personnel matters really applies, because they're not really personnel.
Mm-hmm.
They're not employees of the organization.
Right. Hey.
Again, I'm not expert in the vagaries of HR law, so I don't know. Maybe HR law in Connecticut is different.
Yeah. But, you were right. It was a 6 call. It was the Southwest Division Director Dick Norton in November 6 Alpha.
Okay.
Yeah, he said something at the International DX convention
at Visalia this past year. Or last year.
And basically they made it where he was censured.
Yeah.
But if the one of the rules that were actually taken out that we were talking about earlier, where the board could remove somebody's membership, if that was adopted, even though they couldn't remove him as a director, if that passed, they could remove him as a ARRL member, which would automatically disqualify him from being a director and would lead it to where they could remove him from being a director.
I would like to think that the repercussions of being of the board of directors voting, well, not I would like to think. It would seem to me, there's probably a better way to phrase this, that if the ARRL board voted to be able to rescind somebody's membership, quote unquote, for cause, without explaining what for cause is or why that person's membership is revoked, it would seem to me that membership would plummet.
Mm-hmm.
Because who wants to be a member of an organization where just because maybe you disagree with the board's decision and you voice that opinion and they take your membership away, who wants to be a member of that kind of organization? Right.
Yeah, exactly. And there's several other topics that are on these things. I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of them, but you can read more about them. They're all listed on the myarrlvoice.org. But I wanted to mention this one thing. It really brought a good laugh, I think, and it was actually kind of sad too. This letter, I'm not going to say who it was from, but he goes through and he's like, he said that he is coming up on his mid-70s birthday, and he's been a member since like the 1960s. And that he was going to look at leaving something in his will for the ARRL. And he goes on to say that if the things that are being put forward to the board are not tabled for an upcoming meeting, that he's not going to do that.
Vote with the power of the purse.
But it's just kind of crazy to me. And that's the entire gist of his letter. He talks about his how long he's been a ham, how old he is, and that he's thinking about giving a legacy gift to the ARRL when he dies. And then he says, if y'all pass this, I'm not going to do it. And that's the entire gist of his letter. It just kind of brought a laugh to me, Yeah, that was it. There was no.
It sounds like a temper tantrum.
Yeah, there's no justification. Why I don't like this thing, why I don't like that thing. Nothing. That was it. I've been
There are a lot of comments on the myarrlvoice.org website. I read through some of the comments last night as I was doing some of the prep for the show, and there are other comments that are like that. That read like people, just kind of holding I'm going to hold my breath till I turn blue kind of thing. There are other comments on there that are, and other publications of letters that are very well reasoned, very, very well thought out, very well argued. And the only reason that I haven't written my director myself is again, this all broke. The first part of last week is when most of this broke. CQ Magazine published a big editorial on it in their, I guess it's their January issue. Maybe it was their February issue. I don't know. Their most recent issue. They published a big editorial on this whole thing, and on their website they put a big editorial. And that's kind of what broke this whole thing open to broad knowledge, as far as I understand it. And I just haven't had the time the last 2 weeks to go through the pages and pages and pages of all the documentation and all the changes and sort out to make sure I'm connecting the dots correctly, and because it's complex. There's nothing simple about what's going on, and it needs to be well read and well understood if you're going to send a letter in. If you have the time to read and understand, you definitely need to send notes, to send letters. Please send well-reasoned, well-thought letters. Excuse me, to your director, to your division director, if you're an ARRL member, and let them know how you feel about it.
Some of, like you said, some of them were very well written. Each bullet point on each topic, they talked about it, and it was great. And the others was like, really, But anyways, enough of that. This. Like you said, this came out. I think it's actually this December issue.
Okay.
Yeah, the December 2017 issue. The article said the changes proposed to ARRL governing documents, and then there's another one that was in the CQ white paper on December the 12th. It was titled ARRL Secrecy and Censure. Anyways,
right.
And I think that's actually when it all broke, and it really got blown up. People giving out misinformation, people giving out their own opinions on how they're reading it, and it wasn't right, and then, all that. But somewhere in the midst of it, and somewhere in the reading that I did last night, I read that the ARRL president, and I don't know if this is true, y'all, so take this with a grain of salt or, believe it or not. But I remember reading somewhere that it said that the ARRL president stated that the motions that were coming up for the board members should not have been made public until after the board members voted on it.
Which is part of the whole crux of the argument that the league is becoming too secretive and is trying to do things behind closed doors and ram things through without giving the membership adequate opportunity to comment on it or to make our opinions known. Is that they're making all these changes and not telling us they're coming, and the next thing we know, we can be expelled from the league, quote unquote, for cause, but they're not telling us what cause is, and it's up to the ethics committee. The 3-member ethics committee gets to determine what that cause is on a case-by-case basis, which makes it arbitrary and capricious, in my opinion.
Exactly.
So, anyways, read the website. Look at the myarrl.voice website. Read it as thoroughly as you can in the 3 days left between now and when the board meets. And please let your directors know how you feel.
Actually, it'll be several hours because this goes live on Thursday. So
I'm looking at the at that website right now, myarrlvoice.org, and there's actually a countdown timer to when the board meeting begins. And right now it's showing 3 days, 5 hours, and 27 minutes.
Right. But this isn't live. This is recorded.
This is recorded.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I forgot about that.
So this will go live Thursday morning when they'll have less than probably 12 hours.
Oh, wow.
You got to remember that part.
So can you tell I've had a long weekend and I'm not operating on a full tank right now?
Yeah, it's like after 10 o'clock there, too. It's, past your bedtime.
So it's past my bedtime. It is.
So
it's 10:30. I'm usually cuddled up in bed by now.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and break there. We're going kind of long in this episode, but, we always do when Ian comes on. We always have a ton of fun. So stick around, y'all. We'll be right back after a word from Dan Romanchik.
Hi, this is Dan, KB6NU, author of the No Nonsense Amateur Radio License Study Guides. My study guides have helped thousands get their license or upgrade to general class or extra class, and they can help you too. What makes them unique is my no-nonsense style. I don't bamboozle you with a lot of text. Instead, I give you just what you need to know in a simple, straightforward way that's designed to help you pass the test. One reader even told me, your study guide explained in a couple of paragraphs topics that the license manual needed a couple of pages to cover. Another wrote, the clarity and simplicity of your descriptions blew the license manual away. My study guides are available in paperback, in a variety of ebook formats, and even as audiobooks. Get your copy today. Go to kb6nu.com/ETHR for more info. Thanks.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Again, this is Ian, Kilo Mike 4, India Kilo. Curtis has wrangled me in to be the special guest host again this week. He and I are in contract negotiations right now to make me a regular a regular co-host on the show probably once a month. Please don't let that affect your subscriptions. Please keep listening to the show despite that fact.
Or maybe including that fact.
Or maybe including that.
I'm
big on self-deprecating.
I always enjoy when you come on. We always have a great time. We laugh a bunch and probably even more during the breaks when nobody hears it. But I enjoy you being on here, and I'm sure everybody else does too. So,
I appreciate it. I have a lot of fun when I come on. It's a great time. I'm going to have to stop doing this at my dining room table and start doing it from down in the shack, though, because I think my wife gets tired of getting run out of the living room and watching TV when I do the shows. So I think next time, the only reason I didn't do that this time is because I was I had a really, really long weekend, and I was on the road today and just couldn't stand sitting in a bar stool for the 2 hours. I wanted I wanted a decent chair. Anyway, in this segment, the last segment we discussed a couple of, fairly weighty, fairly heavy topics, especially the one, about the ARRL. So I want to cover a couple of lighter topics in this segment, and, hopefully they'll be a little bit shorter. The first one I want to talk about is an app that I was introduced to. This is for all you Android folks out there.
Yeah, it's none available for the awesome platform of iPhones.
Okay, let's not get into a platform war here now.
Well, iPhone's the best, so there's no war.
Anyway, there's an Android app called Ham Radio Podcasts. That's what the app is called. I heard about this on another podcast I was listening to. I think it was the Winter Field Day show from the Ham Radio 360 Field Day episode. It's basically an aggregator for better than 24 amateur radio-based podcasts. This podcast, Everything Ham Radio, is one of the podcasts that's in the app. Several other very good ones that I listen to. Linux in the Ham Shack. QSO Today is another good one. 100 Watts in a Wire.
Oh, speaking of 100 Watts on a Wire, I mentioned earlier about that. It wasn't 100 Watts on a Wire. It wasn't Christian. It was the Ham Radio Now podcast.
Oh, okay.
That and I had it. I don't know what happened to it. I had it up just a second ago, but it was mentioned on the amateurradio.com blog and on their website. But the main guy is leaving. I can't.
Okay, That's not one I've listened to. Maybe I will now because it's in my aggregator. Anyway, check out the app. I downloaded it, and because there are already a number of podcasts that I listen to already that are in there, and I'll try out and listen to some of the other ones, and I'll see what I think. So that's that. I also want to talk about a couple of DXpeditions that are coming up this year, one of which the team is en route now as we speak, I believe. 3 Yankee 0 Zulu, the Bouvet Island DXpedition. Those guys are, like I said, they're on their way down. Bouvet is the number 2 most wanted DX entity on the planet, according to Clublog. So for those of you that are familiar with clublog.org,
who's number 1?
Check them out. Papa 5. Do we all know who Papa 5 is? North Korea.
Cool.
North Korea is number 1. So Bouvet is number 2 behind them. It's going to take them about 2 weeks. They left, according to the latest press release, they were supposed to leave. We're recording this on Monday. I think Saturday they were supposed to have left. The 13th they were supposed to have left. There was some ocean ice between. They were going to fly from Punta Arenas, Chile to King George's Island and then board their ship in King George's Island and go from there. There was some major ocean ice between King George's Island and Bouvet, so they changed their travel plans. They were leaving directly from Punta Arenas by boat, by ship, to go to Bouvet, and it's going to take them like 2 weeks to get there. Once they get there, they're going to be on the air for, I believe, another 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks back. Maybe they're going to be on the air for a little over 2 weeks. You can check out, we'll put the website in the show notes. It's bouvetdx.org. Has all the information, has all the press releases. It's also got a neat little map on there that they have worked with their Garmin equipment, and they're going to have a tracker for the ship while it's en route from Punta Arenas out to Bouvet Island. So just a little quick background. Bouvet is a volcanic island. It's in the South Atlantic, almost in the Arctic. It is
very cold.
Very cold. But it's ice pack. The ground is ice pack. It's uninhabitable, and it's uninhabited. It is the furthest. It's the island on Earth that is the furthest from any mainland of any of the islands on the planet. So it is the most remote, hardest to get to place on Earth. If you get a chance to work these guys, work them. I know a couple of the guys that are on the team are from the Atlanta area. Very well-known DXpeditioners. If they can hear you, and they will work you. They'll get you in the logs. I'm going to do my best to try to work them myself. We'll see how propagation and my antennas play. But definitely pay attention to these guys and work them. The other DXpedition.
Well, before we go into that, I'm looking at that website, and they actually have a map, a globe picture, I guess you could say, of where this island is, and that it's really true, because it's like it says it's 1,000 miles from Antarctica, it's 1,800 miles from the tip of South Africa, and it's 2,700 miles from the tip of South America. So it's literally out there in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, and it looks like the last time that there was a DXpedition on this island was in 2008.
Yeah, so it's been 10 years. Definitely be on the lookout for these guys when they get on the air, and help support them, because it's very expensive to get where they're going. Just kind of my little plug for them. The other DXpedition is coming up in the summer to a far more hospitable place. Baker Island is in the South Pacific, and they are. I got to find the show notes because I got to find the website. It's Kilo Hotel 1 AP7. I have to find it. Oh, good Lord! I should have been better prepared than this. It's Kilo Hotel 1. There it is. Baker 2018. Baker Island is, again, it's in the Pacific. It's about 2,000 miles south of Hawaii. It's part of the U.S. Minor Outlying Islands chain. It's if you remember, there have been a bunch of DXpeditions in the last few years to Christmas Island, excuse me, and the Solomons and the Marianas. So Baker Island is kind of in between Christmas Island and the Solomons and Tarawa and the Marshall Islands and some of these other places that have been on the air recently, Tuvalu and Nauru and some of these other islands in the South Pacific. It's very much a very much more tropical climate. It's actually the excuse me, it's a protected wildlife refuge. So the crew that's going to Baker Island has to have a Fish and Wildlife Service person with them, and they've got to follow, a number of rules set out by the Fish and Wildlife Service about leaving no footprint when they leave, so they can't leave any evidence that they've been there. But Baker Island is number 4 on the club log list. So in 2018. And these guys are going to be on the air in June, according to their website, which is baker2018.net, and is also in the show notes. But a couple of, if you're a DXpeditioner and you like chasing the DX entities, there are a couple of very big, going to be very popular DXpeditions coming up. One starting in the next couple of weeks, and then another one in the next 6 months or so. So a lot of exciting things happening in the world of the DXpedition.
Mm-hmm. So if you like those long-distance contacts, there's some really long-distance contacts for you.
You're not going to get any more long-distance than
the Bouvet one.
Man.
Yeah,
Bouvet, thank you.
Yeah, and
it's been a long day. Than Bouvet. And
Baker Island's actually, it's pretty far out there, too. It's 1,920 miles southwest of Honolulu. It's almost halfway between Hawaii and Australia.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good out there. So if you want those long distance contacts, DXpeditions are the way to go.
Absolutely. But to also be able to, the big thing with these is in the case of Bouvet, because of the cost and challenge and expense getting there. In the case of Baker Island, because it's a national wildlife refuge, we don't know when these entities are going to be on the air again. So if you can get them now, I encourage it. I know I'll be trying for them. I can certainly tell you that. Whether I'm successful or not depends on a number of factors, when I can put my backside in my chair and operate, and what propagation is doing, and all those other things that I can't control. But I am going to give it my best shot to get both of them in the logs, hopefully on multiple bands and in multiple modes. Mm-hmm. So Bouvet actually is going to be operating, Bouvet could potentially be operating some FT8. As a digital mode, depending on what band conditions do. However, they are very specific about, if you want to work them on FT8, go read the instructions on how to do it on their website, because they apparently are not going to be using the traditional FT8 frequencies. They've got some different frequencies they're going to be using. So, they have notes in all their press releases or whatever to read the section of their website that talks about how their FT8 operation is going to work if they operate FT8. So make sure you do that so you can get it in the log. Mm-hmm. And those were just the 3 real quick hit, a little bit lighter, a little more fun notes to bring to the show this week.
Yeah. Well, there is some other things that good, bad, definitely ugly. Not too long ago, the ARRL had a news article came out where they had a video that was posted on YouTube of some urban explorers that went inside the Haran Arena. And this was taken, I want to say, like 6-7 months or so after Haran Arena officially closed. And it has like a 30-minute video, and they crawl all over the Haran complex, and they go into some places that there is no way that you would catch me going into, some really stinky places. Yeah, and I think there was even one of them. They were walking through this little tunnel, and I will have a link to the video in the show notes as well.
With the rancid
water.
water.
And it was like really nasty water, and it evidently one of them actually fell in.
A couple of them did.
Yeah.
A couple of them, but you can hear them in the background of the video. I watched the video yesterday after you put up the link for me, and it's definitely interesting. There are sides of the Haran Arena that you see that it's almost zombie apocalypse like.
After I watched that video, I got those little videos, the suggestive videos that pop up, and one of them was of somebody that was there the last day that Haran Arena was officially opened, and there's a bunch of people that just explored the arena area and looked at different things, and you could see the difference in both videos, them going to the same place, seeing the same thing, and 6, 7, 8 months later, they're still in the exact same places they were in the video of the last day. But
it's very different.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I would imagine that, once they officially closed, that, people broke in, people, trashed the place just for the heck of it, that, I'm sure a lot of that has happened because of that. But some of the stuff that was left there just blows my mind. There were
food stuff lying on the floor.
Yeah, there was like popcorn containers and popcorn all over the floor. There was
hot dog bags. Hot dog bags.
Yeah, a bunch of them. And then there was like canned drinks. They had like cans of
Red Bull, like cases of Red Bull.
Yeah, and like,
wasn't that what it was?
Yeah,
Red Bull energy drinks.
No, I think it was a Red Bull alcoholic drink, and I think that was actually up in the apartment where that was. But down in like,
there was this apartment in there that was totally trashed, but some of the stuff they were showing makes you wonder when that apartment was last occupied. I think the video game controllers they showed were like Nintendo NES systems from when I was in college,
and
in
a Game Boy,
late 80s and early 90s. Yeah, and a Game Boy. That stuff dates back to the late 80s and early 90s. So it's like, when was that apartment last occupied?
And why was all the stuff left in there? Why was all that personal stuff left in there?
Yeah.
But then they had like, canned drinks, like I think it was like grapefruit juice or something like that was left in there. There was beer bottles all over the place. There was liquor bottles that were half full.
Well, the bar was completely stocked, wasn't it?
I don't know if it was completely stocked, but I know there was quite a few of them in there.
It was stocked. Yeah. I heard somebody refer to that video as creepy and scary, and I don't know if that's how I would have described it after watching it. I mean, it was interesting. It was, some of the things you saw certainly made you scratch your head and go, why on earth is that even still there?
Yeah, like the Zamboni.
Well, it was nice.
Well, yeah, but why is it still there? And,
the pickup truck.
Yeah, the pickup truck. The files that were still in the desk, like, I don't know where they...
Yeah, the office looked like it was just abandoned.
What is it, like employee records or something? Is there somebody's social security number on there, on those papers that are in there? You got all this, and it's like, why is it still there?
Yeah, it's like they just abandoned it in place.
Yeah, like they didn't go through it at all, get anything out. Computers, monitors, all kinds of things that were...
Well, to be fair though, the arena was seized by the IRS and then condemned. So they may have come in the door and said, the building's ours now, you've got 20 minutes to get out. I mean, that could be very well be what happened.
That's true.
or we have seized this building and all of its contents. You're not allowed to go back inside and touch anything. That could be what happened.
Could very well be. But,
which would explain why the Zamboni is still there.
And the truck. But on the flip side of that, we don't have Haran Arena anymore, and now we've moved over to Xenia. Well, last Hamvention that was up there, it was great. They had a bunch of stuff. But they also had like tent city, so to speak, and like a massive mud hole.
Yeah, I heard about that. I heard the tent because it rained before they put the tents up, and then they put the tents up over the mud.
Well, I think
so. The mud never dried.
Yeah, I think it was actually like they put it up and they set up, and like the first day of setup, it was fine, and then the next day, like on Thursday or something like that, it rained really bad that night.
Oh, is that what happened? Okay.
Because I think Kale and George and Jeremy, they were in one of the tent spots, and on the first day, day were there.
They ended up getting booth space with one of their sponsors gave them some booth space. I can't remember which one.
I don't remember either.
It was the SD. I'm drawing a blank.
I don't remember
because they talk about it. They talk about it all the time. Because when they're talking about the when they're doing the promotional spot for the sponsor, it's these were the guys that gave us half of their booth at Dayton last year. Spy SDR, SDR Play, something like that. It was one of the SDR, one of the software defined radio manufacturers and vendors. Anyway, sorry to Kale and George and company for not remembering your sponsor.
But
hopefully they won't hold my ignorance against you.
No, they'll just hold it against you. That's all.
That's fair enough.
So, but back in December, on December 20th, they actually had a news release where the Greene County Commissioners and the Greene County Fair Board actually approved the construction of a new building there at the fairgrounds, and they've also there was a furniture place that had been there for like something like 50 years or something like that they didn't renew their lease on, and the building is being vacated. So not only will they have the new building that they're building, but they'll also have this big what was known as Fairgrounds Furniture. So the two big buildings will be available at Hamvention 2018. So I mean, they're
great. So plenty of indoor space.
Yeah, and they're actually saying that the two buildings will be bigger, will have more floor space than the area that was used for the tents.
Oh, even better.
So I mean, it's sounds like it's going to be a pretty good size, buildings and pretty good size area that's going to be added for Hamvention, and of course other things as well. I'm sure Hamvention was probably the biggest thing that they have there at the fairgrounds, since there was so much that was done when they moved there last year. But but still,
yeah. And everything that I've heard is and the fairground is the Greene County Fairgrounds out in Xenia, Ohio, and they are very well. The conversation that I heard last year around Dayton when everything moved is that the fairground was very excited about having the Hamvention there, and they're very much looking forward to cultivating that relationship and making sure that was it became a very long and prosperous and mutually beneficial relationship. So this just goes to show that Greene County is kind of putting its money where its mouth is, and that they're improving their fairground and I don't want to be so arrogant as a radio amateur to say, look, they're doing this for Dayton Hamvention, but to bolster the attractiveness of their facilities for events like Dayton, like Hamvention, is a very positive. I see that as a very positive step for Hamvention, for the future of Hamvention.
Well, it was there at Dayton for 60 years or something like that. You know,
long
who's
time
to say,
at the Haran Arena.
Who's to say it won't be there at Xenia for another 60 years?
There you go.
Hopefully they'll keep the Xenia Fairgrounds up better than Haran Arena did, but because I heard the last 10, 15 years or so of that it was pretty run down.
I went to Dayton 2 years ago, so the second next to the last year that it was at Hara. And, I'd heard all the horror stories. My father-in-law went 2 or 3 years before I got the chance to go. And he came back talking about, how all the horror stories were true and how run down the building was. And I got there and I looked around. I was like, well, I mean, yeah, it's an old building. The tiles are water stained and some of them are falling out. The paint, there's cracks in the walls, but, I've probably been in much worse buildings than this. But then again, I wasn't there when the sewers backed up and there was raw sewage running through the boneyard either a few years ago. So that was, I talked to people that were there. That was not an urban legend. That actually happened,
Nice.
5 or 6 years ago over at Haran Arena. But, I guess a number of circumstances came together and Hara is no longer available, and I'm not going to say if it's a good thing or it's a bad thing. It's a thing, and Hamvention has moved on, and it seemed like from everything I heard last year, there were some growing pains, but otherwise it was a very successful move.
Well,
most people were at worst ambivalent about it, and most thought it was a good move and a good for the future.
The way that Greene County worked with the organizers of Hamvention, adding phone drops and internet drops and cell phone antennas and all that stuff, and then putting the tents up. I'm sure they probably didn't have all those tents. They probably went and bought them all to put those up. So there was a bunch of money that was dropped by the Greene County fairgrounds or whatever, and the county itself, I'm sure, to make these changes to bring the Hamvention there and make it such a success as it is. And then on top of that, you got all the the people that are working behind the scenes. Not only the volunteers from the Hamvention people, but then you got police officers directing traffic, and I'm sure they had standby EMS personnel that they had to be paid for, and all that. Greene County really got behind Hamvention that first year, and this just goes to show you that they're continuing to be behind and pushing forward and making it even better.
Now, if they really want to cement it, they'll figure out how to cram more spectrum into the 2 meter and 70 centimeter band so that more people can get more repeaters and more radios on the air there. If they can figure that out.
Well, that's when you just go, digital, and where you can have 2 channels on the same frequency and
go TDMA on everybody, right? Time division multiplex.
No. If you go, DMR, you can it actually has 2 channels per frequency.
Yeah, it uses TDMA.
Okay. Okay, sure.
It uses time division. It uses time division multiplex. So it uses time blocks. So channel 1 gets it for 10 seconds, and then channel 2 gets it for 10 seconds, and then channel 1 gets it for it's not 10-second blocks, but
maybe 10 milliseconds.
That's kind of how 10 milliseconds. That's kind of how they do that.
But still,
and it works. And it works. It's good. Yeah. Anyways.
Well, I think that's about it.
So, I think that's everything. I think we covered it all.
Well, not about to cover it all, but cover all of that we have in our notes.
Well, and we only did it in 2 hours and 5 minutes.
Well, no, there was like a 20-minute break in there where I was putting up the groceries and stuff like that.
That's
so
right.
It's only an hour and 40 minutes is all.
Okay.
But anyways, y'all.
There's some other stuff you'll edit out. I'm sure that'll shorten it even a little bit.
Actually, probably lengthen it because I got the 2 commercials and stuff in there too. So, and the intro. Okay. There's some stuff. So it'll probably be 2 hours.
It'll be a wash.
Yeah. So, but anyways, y'all, Ian, thanks for coming on again, and like we really need to make this a more common thing, and maybe do it on like Friday night or Saturday night or something like that, where I don't have to keep you up late on your work days.
We'll talk about that. We'll have to talk around the family schedule, and if I didn't run my mouth so long, these wouldn't be 2-hour shows.
Well, maybe I'll break it up next time, and we can,
or we just do fewer topics.
Something, we can record 2 hours, and I can break it up into 1-hour segments, and I can go back to a weekly show.
Yeah.
All right, y'all.
More than one way to skin this cat.
Absolutely. All right, well, that pretty much wraps it up, guys. I want to thank each and every one of y'all for coming on and listening to Ian and I just talk and talk and talk. I hope you enjoyed everything that we talked about, and there's so much that could have been said more that probably wasn't. So, and my son's crying, so better wrap this up really fast. So, anyways, y'all, again, you can find the show notes at everythinghamradio.com/podcast/95. That's the number 95. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/everythinghamradio. YouTube at youtube.com/everythinghamradio, and on Twitter at K5CLM. If you'd like to support this podcast more than just by listening, maybe you want to do it financially, there's several ways you can do that. You can make a one-time donation through PayPal. There's a link at the bottom of the show notes for that. You can become a per-episode contributor through Patreon, and also simply shop on Amazon using my affiliate links. All information on what to do, on how to do these 3 things can be found at everythinghamradio.com/support. Also, I made some changes to my email list. I don't have it where it automatically sends out an email every time I post something to my blog. It's now just a weekly thing I send out on Saturday mornings as just kind of an overview of what goes on. So, if you would like to subscribe to that, you can go to everythinghamradio.com/subscribe, fill out the form, click sign me up, and you'll get an email with a link that you'll need to click on in order to start receiving emails from me. And like I said, it's done every Saturday morning. So that pretty much wraps it up. So for myself, Curtis, K5CLM,
and this is Ian, KM4IK.
I want to wish each and every one of y'all a very happy New Year, since this is the first episode of this new year. And we'll see you next time. So, 73, y'all.
73, everybody. Thanks for listening.
You there, bud?
So just to give you an idea of how sensitive your mic is, I heard your wife whispering about Chips Ahoy and Oreos.
Seriously?
Really?
My mic?
Seriously?
My wife?
Hi, Ms. Moore.
Hi.
Alrighty then, I guess I need to back off my mic a little bit.
That's sad, because I was.
I'll be around. I'll be around about lunchtime tomorrow for the Chips Ahoy. I'll be glad to help. I'm just a big kid at heart where those are concerned. I'll help yours.
Well, I'm sure he probably did.
That I didn't. I heard the whisper, but I couldn't tell what it was.
Oh, good.
It was below the noise floor.
Oh, well. All right.
Anyway.
That's life with 4 kids. Hide the cookies.
Hide the cookies, hide the cereal, hide the candies.
Yeah.
Maybe make sure the milk is someplace they can't find it. I mean, I've got 4 adults and a 12-year-old boy in my house, and we buy 2 to 3 gallons of milk at a time every week.
We buy 4.
Yeah.
2 whole milk, 2%.
So I'm not far behind you.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of just buying a dairy cow and
Probably
hooking
cheaper.
them up on tap.
Well, it's probably cheaper, and you get something, and your lawn stays cut.
There you go.
Bonus.
Yeah,
Double.
Bonus.
Well, at least part of the lawn, we live on 14 acres, so might have to get a few dairy cows.
Well, rotate. You rotate the cow to different parts of the yard, of the acreage, and it's like it's like regular farming. You got to rotate your supply around.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
I'll buy you that for Christmas, okay?
Oh, okay.
In 2 years.
I told Dad we needed to buy a dairy cow, and he said, I ain't milking it. Tell me.
You buy a machine.
You can do that, right? And you can go out and milk it
I'm
every day.
hooking them up on tap. I'm serious. You want milk so bad, go out there.
Like drinking out of a water hose.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right.
That's the country life.
Wait, are you allowed to do that anymore?
Yeah.
I mean, I spent my whole childhood doing that. You go outside, it's summer, it's hot, you drink out the garden hose.
Mm-hmm.
And you're scarred for life, right?
Absolutely. Can't you tell? I also rode my bike without a helmet and, without pads and
Yeah.
No seat belt. no
probably
that.
20 other things. I probably did 20 or 30 other things that you're not supposed to do today.
And you stayed out until the lights came on? Didn't need a cell phone to tell you to come home?
Yeah, but God help me, I'd better be home when those lights came on. I think my be home time, my parents made sure I had a watch. And by God, if I was out after school, I'd better be home by 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
or better have called Mom and let her know where I am.
Mm-hmm.
So
what are y'all talking about?
Well, we just got done talking about Winterfield Day. Now we're going to talk about some stuff that's going on with the board of directors for our National Amateur Radio Association. And then we're going to talk about a building that used to have the biggest ham radio convention that no longer does, how that's changed. And then some DXpeditions and some podcast stuff, and yes, I know, she's nodding off here.
Well, you boys get back to it.
Damn.
Bye.
She's never going to let you play with me again.
Is he talking bad about me?
He said you're never going to let me play with him again.
I'm a bad influence.
Just be home when the lights go.
What was that?
Just be home when the lights come on.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Oh, goodness.
Moving on.
Yeah, moving on.